So I'm sitting around in my nightgown this morning. Suzanne Titkemeyer, formerly no longer quivering, now my own self. I've been waiting to hear what was going to happen with the Josh Duggar thing. My routine in the mornings is I usually get up and putter around in my nightgown and then eventually put on my swimsuit and go outside for a while and then get dressed for the day. So I stayed inside a lot longer today because I wanted to hear what was going to happen with Josh Duggar, that whole thing. BS, Ashley, and JC, you got the notification. That's awesome. And everybody else coming in here, Katie Kaiser and Kentucky Girl. Greetings this morning. Now, I don't claim to have unnamed Duggar insiders. Now that I'm not writing for NLQ, I don't have any contacts anymore whatsoever. So I didn't even think to try and reach out to anybody I know over this. But I gotta say this. I'm seeing a bunch of other creators, and I'm not just saying Katie Joy. I'm not beating up Katie Joy for this, but I'm seeing a ton of other creators claiming they have unnamed Duggar insiders. And they're all taking their information from the Sun. The Sun had a reporter there that did what I used to do at NLQ sometimes. He sat there and just kept updating minute by minute of the hearing. Ashley, I'm sorry, but no official charges were released yet. I don't know why that is. They probably told the entire water therapy. Yeah, I'll be doing the same thing here very shortly, getting in the pool. No official charges were mentioned in anything that I've seen online yet. I don't know why that would be, but here's what was mentioned that I think tells us what the charges likely will be. He was ordered to stay away from minors. And there's going to be a bail hearing next week on the charges. His attorneys want bail, obviously. The attorney for the federal government has said they do not want bail. They want remand. So obviously what he's done is pretty serious. He's been ordered to stay away from minors. So that tells us a little more about what the charges will likely be. And I'm not surprised and disgusted. I'm more disgusted. I think it may be. I know that's what she's saying, and that's what other people have been saying. I've heard other people saying it was the IRS. I knew for a fact through my few contacts I still have that it was not the IRS. I believed all along that CP was likely, very likely, because as I've explained at NLQ a number of times, when you have this modesty, no sexual thoughts at all, purity culture, you have teenagers and young adults forced to suppress their natural sexual urges, something that all of us experience when our bodies go through puberty. It's pretty normal, along with other things like trying to fight with your parents. Been through that, been there, done that, both as a fighter and a fightee. So those are all normal things. But here's the thing, purity culture teaches that those are abnormal things, and those are things that only rebellious demonic teens do. Well, when you have that kind of emphasis on those things, what you have is you have kids that are forced to subsume those urges. And that is when you come up with these guys that are hooked on porn and all this other stuff. If you're forced to subdue and deny and hide a natural part of your emotional and physical development, it's going to come out somewhere, and it's going to likely come out somewhere weird if you don't deal with it. We know that Josh has never had any kind of psychiatric or social work help whatsoever to deal with his problems. He just went to work for Bill Gothard once, and for Reformers Unanimous, so that all he did was just do construction work. You can't go through that kind of weirdness Yeah, that's going to be weird. Um, for him, I agree. I agree. The fact is, in order to stay away from kids means that he can't see his own children except in supervised settings. We all know about how much respect the Duggars have for the law when it impacts them. So I don't see that happening. I see them totally ignoring that and just letting him see his children as much as he can and want. They'll say his rights as a father override any concerns for the children. I predict that's going to happen. If it does, it could go very badly for the entire family. The son is saying that Jim Bob told the entire family that the arrest was coming down on Thursday. He turned himself in, which is not unusual when you have pending federal charges of a serious nature. Usually there's some kind of mediated or brokered arrest turn-in thing between obviously the defendant and the feds, where they'll let the person say goodbye to their family, not arrest them in a way that is traumatic to the children in front of the children. I don't think he should be around any children either, Melanie. That I think that if there's visitation with his children or any family children, and I mean any family children, there needs to be a supervisory type person there. There needs to be a social worker or someone in CPS, somebody monitoring the visit if there is visitation with family children, not even just his children. Anything less than that is going to be violating that law where he's been ordered to stay away from minors. So it's all very interesting. We'll see how it goes down and how the family reacts. I predict we're going to see a statement within the next 48 hours from Jim Bob denying everything and saying business as usual. Keep in mind that Jim Bob Duggar, and this is one of my objections to the Duggars, threw his two daughters, Jessa and Jill, under the bus when it came out that Josh had molested his sisters. None of the documentation, nor In Touch or anyone else, exposed who had actually been molested. Nobody knew for sure until Jim Bob himself named the girls and drugged Jessa and Jill in front of Megyn Kelly's camera on Fox News to do an interview about how they'd forgiven Josh. That interview was incredibly hard to watch for me. I cried when Jill Duggar started crying because you would have to be heartless not to feel for her, to feel some type of sorrow for her that she was being drugged into the media and exposed as being one of the victims when nobody really knew. Imagine your worst thing that ever happened to you and your parents drugged you in front of the media to confess to it and to say you had forgiven the person who'd done this thing to you. You know, I was molested as a child and I still haven't forgiven the person who did that. I haven't been drugged in front of the cameras, thank God, about it, even though the person did have some small notoriety in Louisiana. One of the buildings at the LSU med school was named after him once upon a time. So yeah, he had some notoriety and I could have been drugged in front of him too, but it didn't happen. And I'm sorry it did happen to Jill and Jessa, and Jill seemed to be the most affected by the two. I hope that all of this gives Jill some measure of peace and it allows her to keep moving forward. I know she's in therapy and she's getting treatment. That can only be a good thing. Like I said, all of us sometimes need therapists. It's not a bad idea to go check with one, regardless of what Jim Bob should absolutely be charged with aiding and abetting and for covering all of this. They never rehabilitated him. They never made any move to help him in any way, shape, or form to deal with his sex addict sexuality problem. And now we have these tabloids in the Great Britain naming him the sex pest, which all day yesterday I was listening to Tom Jones' song Sex Bomb in my mind with the word sex pest instead of sex bomb. Gee, thanks for that. I really feel the worst for Anna and the children. She should have left him back when it all came out about him molesting his sisters. She should have left him when it came out about Ashley Madison. She should have left him when it came out that he had been abusive with a porn star in a sexual manner to the point where the porn star was suing. Those are all legitimate reasons to leave someone. But I know from having been part of that type of church and that kind of theology that women are not encouraged to ever leave, even when there's abuse, even when the abuse is physical, even when the abuse is sexual, and he may be exposing you to STDs that could harm you and end your life. You're told that you have to stick by your husband no matter what he does, that you're earning up huge crowns in heaven because of your faithfulness and your love for your husband, and you casting your skirts over their iniquities and their sins by standing by for them for all sorts of things. You're told that you must do this, that this is what you signed up for when you got married. Honey, no. If I could run away from my abusive, cheating ex-husband with bruises all over my entire body, with a baby under one arm and a suitcase under another arm, without $1 in my pocket, anyone can do it. I'm not special. I'm not especially courageous. You just have to decide that you're worth more. You're worth more than the abuse of a man. If I could say anything to Anna, it would be that. When I met the Duggars back, I don't even remember, 2014, 15, I had a long conversation with Anna because the line had backed up to get your books signed. And of all the Duggars, her and one of the younger Duggar boys were the only two people that I talked to who seemed halfway normal. The younger Duggar boy, and I'm not going to say his name because I think he's probably gay, remarked upon my outfit. I had a beautiful hand-knit sweater and I was wearing red skinny pants. He was very intrigued by those red skinny pants and said he liked them. Anna and I had a long conversation, and well, as long as you could have it a line like that, maybe 2 or 3 minutes. And that's not really a long conversation. I backtrack. And she seemed absolutely normal compared to the rest of them. The other ones seemed like brainwashed cult followers. Anna seemed normal. So I'm going to keep sending my prayers and my brightest hopes and wishes that Anna sees the light, that she sees that she's locked in an abusive relationship and that she's worth more than that. And she may be having 7 children here shortly, but I'm pretty certain that she could probably get some pretty significant alimony out of this deal and child support. Even if Josh couldn't pay it, I am sure that Jim Bob Duggar would likely cough up a large sum just to keep her from saying anything, to make her sign a non-disclosure agreement. And I kind of hope that happens. I don't wish that Josh gets beat up or gets raped and pound me in the ass, federal prison. But if it happens, I may giggle a bit because it will feel like the universe is dispensing some universal reciprocity karma. You can't run around and do horrible things willy-nilly and not expect them to come back and bite you in the butt. That's why I keep trying to tell everybody. That's why I keep short offense lists. That's why I don't fight with people. That's why I just say, oh, bless your heart, and move on, because it's better to do that than it is to continually rack up the bad acts and rack up the karma. Man, I'm getting old, and I don't want the Grim Reaper to look at me any sooner than he absolutely has to. And considering I have all these things wrong with me, it's probably going to be quicker than I would have wanted. I never dreamed I'd make it to 30. She does believe in what she's doing. She believes that this is God's role for her, and it's going to be very difficult. Josh's family absolutely owes it to them. Absolutely. And I think that if they, yeah, the kids don't have the choice. The kids don't have the choice. I feel the worst for them because obviously they're going to love their father regardless of what happens. The brainwashing, gaslighting in your relationship is difficult. Yes, yes, it certainly is. Brindales, what's going to happen? I don't know. Anna's going to have to reach rock bottom and realize that coming out is the only way. I'm hoping that Jill will reach out to her, Jill Dillard. It might be that Jill is the exact right person to talk to her about all of this. I just hope that she makes the choice to protect her children over protecting her husband. And I know how this is going to come across because I've known too many cultural enforcers of Quiverful, Lori Alexander, Debbie Pearl, Nancy Campbell. I had to think about that one for a minute. That they basically have said, if your man molests your children, you give testimony, send it to jail, but you wait for him the whole time he's in jail, forgive him, do all of that. You don't end the marriage. I'm not going to say that. Like I said, I have been through this. I've been through an abusive relationship with someone. Do not remain, Anna, whatever you do. And I think we all need to send her good karma, good vibes, good prayers, however you believe in this. And if she does come out, then we need to just embrace her and accept her. Actually, we need to do that regardless of what happens because she's going to need that. This is a very hard thing that she's going to walk through. And keep in mind, I'm sorry, it looks kind of like Dracula's den of iniquity in here because I am having blood sugar issues and I'm having to test every few minutes to figure out what's going on. But I think that she's going to need all the support she can get, wherever she can get it from. And if in the course of that support, somebody could point out to her she doesn't have to live like this, and enough people say it, maybe that will be good enough. I don't think so, but I'm certainly hoping that will be the case. Unfaithfulness is. I mean, and it's very much so. And here's the tragic thing. I look at Josh is 33 years old. I have a son that's 33 years old that was born right around the same time as Josh. I can't imagine him with 7 children. I can't imagine him going to jail for anything to do with porn or sex or anything else. I just cannot imagine it. And even in our Quiverful days, I taught a different thing about sexuality than the church did, a more measured approach. And I just can't imagine. I can't imagine any of that. And I think Anna is a little younger than Josh. She's still young. They're both still so incredibly young. And God knows we do stupid things when we're young for love, for all kinds of different reasons. So there's actually hope for both of them. And I would like to see both of them, even Josh. I'd like to see Josh have a real come to Jesus moment and recover from this and get the treatment he needs and emerge from prison, whatever his sentence may be. Consider that it's if they find him guilty, comes out a different guy. It's possible. I've seen it happen. It's rare, but that's the way, that's what I think will happen. The sadness of this is prisons do not offer the same programs they used to offer back in the 70s and 80s where you could get some help and pursue an education like a college degree. They don't do that anymore. Or if they do, you have to be sentenced to a certain length of time and have certain behavior markers before you're even allowed in those few little programs. But yeah, so there's a thought. Let's see if Josh, as bad as this is, I'm excited to see if he makes that big change in what he does with the rest of his life. I'm all about people changing. I know I have changed many times through the years, and others can change too. It happens. The U.S. does have stiff sentences. You're right about that. Oh, Brenda, that is good. They have very stiff sentences. And that's something that's really, this is a different side rant. That's something that's really necessary in the U.S., I think. That I think there's been bipartisan support for across both parties is the need for justice reform. I mean, we look at how many people are in jail for marijuana, which is now legal in a lot of places, or at least decriminalized. My last bout of asthma, I laid in the bed and watched a whole lot of YouTube. I watched live PD with my husband. And I'm encouraged by the behavior of some of the officers. Most of the officers were genuinely nice people who were trying to get the real criminals off the streets and just issuing appearance tickets for things like small amounts of marijuana or for paraphernalia or various other things. I'd like to see that criminal code completely redone and be more normalized. I would say, though, for crimes involving children, which this looks like it likely is, stiff sentences should still be the order of the day, because when you abuse a child, you're not just abusing that child in the moment. You are creating such trauma within that child, it's going to impact them for the entire rest of their lives, that they are going to have to work hard to overcome. So many of them fall into alcohol and drug abuse. So many of them fall into pornography and I don't know how to say this kindly. I'm just going to come out with it. Constant sexual activity. I guess that's the kindest thing I can say. When you see a woman who is promiscuous and doing crazy amounts of crazy, destructive sexual things, I can almost guarantee you there's some type of sexual abuse that has happened to that woman as a small child or as a child, because statistics prove it. When you look at the statistics about what kind of women end up in pornography, as sex workers, a lot of times it is those who have been so damaged as a small child. And that's just tragic for anybody to come out thinking that that's really the only thing they're good for. And Quiverful is really good about telling all women that the only thing they are good for is sex. That's not true. We're all good for a variety of things. We're all good to go for so many things. So that's really my morning rant. It makes me sick too. It just makes me incredibly sick that this is going on anywhere in this world. And I want, I'm hoping if he has harmed children, he needs a stiff sentence. There's just no way around that, because he's impacted that child's entire life, and he doesn't even realize it. I've heard a lot of speculation on the Duggar boards and on Uncensored Funny Snark on Reddit and a lot of other places that Josh himself was molested as a child. I wouldn't rule that in or out. I know that in Quiverful, there are large amounts of these things happening, a higher number than in any other people group. Well, anytime you have an extremely repressive religion, you have child molestation going on. I don't know why that would be, but it seems like it happens. And not that that excuses Josh, because obviously it does not. Many people who are abused like that come out and they don't offend. I can certainly say I've never sexually molested a child or even had thoughts of it. Even though from 7 to 9, that was what was done to me. You just learn to cope. You develop coping skills, or you fall off the cliff into the abyss. And I don't want to see anybody falling off that cliff. There's no excuse for what he did, but Brenda Lee, I would never either. Never, never, never. It's probably the opposite for me. So there we go. I'm almost ranted out. It's been almost 30 minutes. So it's time for me to go plant the remainder of my 100 gladiola bulbs and to finish planting my wonderful new garden things. I'm thinking that her family would, that Anna's family would probably embrace her regardless of what happens, and that's good. I'm not a big fan of her family because they're still up in the whole thing. Look, her brother is married to Nuri Rodriguez, and the Rodriguezes are a whole different crazy ball of wax. Speaking of which, I am looking forward to seeing how Jill Rodriguez spins this, because Jill Rodriguez has given me nothing but hours of laughter at some of the things that she spins and says. She has said some crazy things through the years. It does bring up wounds, Ash. That is an excellent point. When these things happen, they trigger people and they bring up old wounds. I was already triggered because I had seen the Holy Laughter video of Kenneth, but I can't even think of his last name right now because my brain is just going Duggar. And I know I'm not the only one. I know I'm probably one in a sea of people that are triggered. I mean, I can see how many people are here in the chat today and guess that there's a lot of triggering going on. A lot. And for all of us, I would not be surprised if, I would not be one bit surprised as this comes out, it gets worse and worse. So brace yourself. As Ned Stark said, winter's not coming, but allegations are coming. And I don't think it's going to be a pretty thing. I think it's going to be ugly. We're all going to get triggered. We won't be able to look away. And we ought to check on each other. We should need to have like a mental health check a couple times a week, I think, in our community. I think that would benefit everyone, and maybe talk about the things that come up, because there's going to be these things that come up when you're triggered, particularly if you're carrying a lot of PTSD from childhood and trauma. Okay, I'm going to go. I have got flower bulbs to plant. It's sunny today, so I'm going to get in the pool and walk. I'm excited. I finally did get an appointment with one of the better neurologists here in Costa Rica. I have a solid appointment. I have appointments to have more brain scans done so they can figure out why from here over I'm almost completely numb and I'm having difficulties functioning. Don't go until mid-July. It's hard to get an appointment with a specialist here without any decent specialist without waiting a long time. And I know that's gotten that way in the States too. My mother offered to pay for me to fly to New Orleans again and come stay with her and see a neurologist in her area. And I had to explain that with how things happen in the States with insurance, particularly my insurance, I know that I would have to get pre-approval. I'd have to go back to a family practice doctor and get a referral. It would be a big mess. So I'm excited. I'm just hoping not to stay triggered and to get my blood sugars under control. They've been dipping way too low, way too high. So, like I said, my bedroom looks like Dracula's Bang Shack or something, with all the strips everywhere and the bloody tissues and things I keep remembering to pick up. You guys have wonderful, blessed days, and try not to react too much. Like I said, it is reactive.